You know, in the world of video games, it's all about teraflops, ray tracing, and just raw power. But the biggest question is always the same. What's next? And today, we're going to try and answer that by looking at Nintendo's next big move. We're piecing together the clues.
All right, so let's get right into it. The current console war, it's been going on for a while now, right? Sony and Microsoft, they've shown their hands. We have the PlayStation 5, we have the Xbox Series X. But what about that third giant in the room? What is Nintendo planning?
Okay, so before we can figure out where Nintendo's heading, we've got to take a quick look at where the industry is right now. Let's kind of set the stage here.
So believe it or not, the 9th generation of consoles kicked off way back in November 2020. We're talking about the generation defined by the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and it's already a few years old. And you remember, it launched right in the middle of the pandemic, which totally messed with supply chains and created this huge demand that honestly, they're still trying to catch up with.
So what's this generation been all about? Well, if you had to sum it up in one word, it's power. Both Sony and Microsoft built their new machines around these super fast custom SSDs. The goal? To just kill loading times. And they're both targeting silky smooth frame rates, 4K resolution, the whole 9 yards. It's a real arms race for who can make the prettiest games.
But while Sony and Microsoft were duking it out over raw power, Nintendo has been, well, playing a totally different game with the Switch, and it's been a massive success for them. But now it really looks like their time to step into the 9th generation ring is finally coming.
So what do we actually know? For years, it's been nothing but rumors and speculation. But lately, a few, let's say, more concrete clues have started to pop up, and they're pointing us in a very interesting direction.
And here we go, our first major clue. And it comes from a pretty unexpected place, actually. A Wikipedia entry on the 9th console generation. It gives us a name, the Nintendo Switch 2, and a release window, June 2025. Now look, is this an official confirmation from Nintendo? No, but it is the first real, tangible detail we've had to work with, and it gives us an anchor for our timeline.
And when you look at this timeline, what's really wild is the huge gap it shows. If this June 2025 date is real, the Switch 2 would launch almost 5 years after the PS5 and Xbox. Nintendo isn't just showing up late to the party, it kind of feels like they're planning to crash it with a totally different vibe.
Okay, so we have a potential name and a date, but that leads to the biggest question of all, right? What is this new console actually going to be like? And to figure that out, we have to look at the software. Because the games, they always hold the biggest clues.
And wouldn't you know it, our first huge clue comes from one of the biggest franchises on the entire planet. It looks like with the Switch 2, Pokémon is about to do something completely different.
Yeah, this is not your typical Pokémon game. Battling trainers, catching them all. Nope. The first big exclusive that's been reported for the Switch 2 seems to point to a very, very different design philosophy.
So get this, it's called Pokémon Pokopia. And you can just forget about gym badges in the Elite Four. This is a peaceful life sim. Think Animal Crossing, but with Pokémon. You apparently play as a metamorph, which, is the Japanese name for Ditto, and you're literally building a world for your Pokémon friends. You're collecting resources, crafting items, building homes. It's all about that quiet, creative experience. And it's supposedly launching on the Switch 2 in March 2026. But wait, the game itself isn't the only new thing here. The way you'll actually buy it is also a huge hint about where things are headed.
They're calling it a game key card, and it's basically this cool hybrid model. You go to a store, you buy a physical card, and that card has the license on it to download the game from the internet. But, and this is the important part, unlike a purely digital game you buy online, you can still sell that card or trade it with a friend when you're done. It's this really fascinating middle ground between owning a physical copy and the convenience of digital.
Okay, so a peaceful life sim is one thing. That's cool. But what about the main series? The core Pokémon games that fans live for? Well, it looks like the next mainline adventure is also tied directly to the Switch 2. And yep, this is the big one, the official start of Generation 10. All signs are pointing to it being a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. This is huge.
The new games are reportedly called Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves, and they're slated for a 2027 release. We're told they're set in a tropical region full of islands and even underwater areas to explore, so the true next step after Scarlet and Violet. We even have the supposed names for the new starters: Brute, the grass type, Palmbon, the fire type, and Gekwa, the water type.
It is crystal clear the future of Pokémon is being built from the ground up for the Switch 2.
All right, let's take a breath and recap. We've got a potential new console, a massive franchise like Pokémon branching out into a whole new genre, a completely new way to buy games, and the next core Pokémon generation. Let's put all these pieces together and see what the puzzle looks like. What does this tell us about Nintendo's grand strategy?
So what's the big picture here? Well, first, it seems like Nintendo is launching late on purpose, letting the dust settle from the initial PS5 and Xbox showdown. Second, they're using their biggest gun, Pokémon, to signal a huge focus on new kinds of gameplay, not just more of the same. Third, they're shaking up how we buy games with this game keycard, trying to find that perfect blend of physical and digital. And finally, in what is the most Nintendo move ever, they're just completely ignoring the raw power race. They're forging their own path, and it's all about unique ways to play.
And all of this brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? The PS5 and the Xbox, they're betting everything on horsepower and graphics. But Nintendo, with this Switch 2, seems to be betting on something else entirely, innovation and brand new ways to play. If you look at their history, that's a gamble that has paid off for them big time. The only question left is, will it work again?